My name is John Thomas, aka the Bodybuilding Vegan on Instagram. I am a competitive vegan bodybuilder. I've been vegan for 17 years, so around 2006 was when I actually became vegan. What led up to that was, I think it had already been in my heart in some way or another. I remember being 4 years old and going fishing with my dad and thinking that was cool and fun up until I found out we had to take the fish out of the water and kill them to eat them. He asked me if I wanted to eat them and I said yes. But when I saw them being killed and drowning alive on the sand, I freaked out and we ended up putting them back in the water. But I didn't turn vegan then yet. I had never been introduced to that. I was around 10 years old. I had a very close childhood friend that told me eating hamburgers kills a cow. And I think at 10, I was old enough to realize this was true, but I wasn't quite ready to make the change yet. I slowly became vegetarian over time. I was already heavily bullied for my appearance. And so I was scared to take on this term of vegetarian 20 years ago when that wasn't a normal and an accepted thing. But eventually, Thanksgiving rolled around, there was turkey on the table. That was the only thing I was still eating that was not vegetarian at the time. And I decided today's gonna be the day. So I went vegetarian at 10. About 3 years later, of all things, I read a PETA magazine. And while I don't always agree with their outreach, this magazine spoke to me because it showed me how factory farming still ends up killing all of the animals involved in things like dairy and eggs. At the end, the dairy cows and the chickens are still gonna be killed for meat. So for me, I decided, let's try this for 1 week. I think I can do it for a week. I think I messed up on the second day. I had like peanut M&Ms. I forgot that there was milk and chocolate. But you know what, I finished that week and I didn't change. And it's been 17 years of starting something with, let's just try it for a week.
Were you not worried about like maybe any health ramifications, not getting enough protein or something stereotypical like that?
I wasn't very health conscious at 10 years old. It was all an ethical decision for the animals. I think I hadn't really been influenced that much yet. I think maybe you heard things like, oh, you need to get your protein, but I was 10, so I didn't really pay attention to that. I wasn't lifting weights. I played sports, I did well. I never thought about the nutritional ramifications, and even the same once I turned vegan. I just assumed that it would be okay, and it was. Now going further, I see the health benefits of going vegan. As a competitive bodybuilder, we need to get our blood work done. We need to make sure we're doing all the things that we can to be healthy in a sometimes unhealthy sport. So seeing all of the health benefits from eating plants and abstaining from meat and dairy, it's kind of shifted over time for me at least. I was never afraid that I was missing out. My parents even actually sent me to a nutritionist to have my diet checked and to see if supplements like creatine were safe. And the nutritionist actually said, creatine is safe, your diet's well-rounded, you're good to go. So yeah, it's just, it was always for me, for the animals first. I didn't ever research the health side when I made the change, but now being in fitness, being in bodybuilding, the health side matters to me too.
That's so cool that your foundation and premise is so hardcore ethical. Could you be with somebody who isn't vegan?
Yes, I've done that quite a few times in my life. Does it make it harder? Maybe sometimes, because in my heart, I know what happens when someone orders a hamburger. I know, or orders like a milkshake. I know the path that led up to that meal being made. However, I wasn't always vegan. I wasn't always vegetarian. It took me until 13 to get there. Everybody is on their own journey. And so if you're listening to this, or if you're not quite there yet, I don't think it's fair for others to cast judgment, even though I do in my heart think that it's wrong. It took me time to get there. I've dated numerous people that weren't. And what I feel is, if nothing else, maybe we go out on a date and we order vegan. If nothing else, one meal has become a different thing for them. Maybe they take that and they go with them and they don't hate tofu in the future. Maybe they open their mindset and see some of other ways that you can live without hurting other animals. So I get it. I understand people would say I would never date someone that's not vegan. But if you do that, if all the vegans just go move to an island and isolate themselves, we don't change the world. You can't be the change that you want to see in the world unless you're doing it yourself.
As an ethical vegan, do you ever find yourself in a dark place, and how do you deal with that?
The world is a dark place. There's just no getting around that. So whether you're vegan or not, we can look and see the negatives. I used to work in law enforcement. To be good in law enforcement, you have to look for people doing the wrong things. If you look for something enough, you will find it. While it's easy to go down that dark path, I try to look instead and see what can we do? What can we focus on the positive? What are we doing right? Who can we reach? What can we do with our time on this earth? And shift our mental focus into doing the things that are right as much as we can.
Sometimes I feel like bodybuilding is kind of like a vain activity. I don't really even see the point in it because I don't even know that it's optimal for longevity in the grand scheme of things. How does it tie into veganism?
Yeah, bodybuilding definitely doesn't tie into longevity. So there is a little bit of a split. There's some of the vegans that do it strictly for ethical reasons. There's others that do it for health reasons. Bodybuilding is not necessarily aligned with either of those directly. For me, I was really bullied heavily for my appearance as a child. I was physically bullied. So part of me felt like if I got bigger and stronger, people wouldn't mess with me. So I think that's why I gravitated towards bodybuilding. I recently did an interview and the host asked me, do you think you being bullied as a child, in addition to leading you towards being a bodybuilder, did that also influence your ability to have empathy for the animals that are also in a sense bullied? And that kind of blew my mind. But shifting back to bodybuilding, I feel like for me, one, it's built up my confidence. I can speak in front of crowds now. I can talk to people. I'm confident because of what I do in the gym. I apply myself and I see things changing. However, bodybuilding is not a sport for longevity. It's not going to get you to 100 years old. But what it does for me is it shows I can be vegan and a bodybuilder, and other people can too if they want. It's no longer an excuse. Oh, I'm a bodybuilder, I can't be vegan. It's not that I want to perform well in sports, so I can't be vegan. I want to show, and I have somewhat selfishly claimed this bodybuilding vegan title because I want to get it out as front of as many people as possible. If I can use my size, my green hair, be a little bit eccentric, and draw people in and get them asking questions. Oh, so you actually can be strong or bodybuild and not eat meat? Tell me how you do it. And it just gets the conversation started. So I feel like maybe a sense of responsibility, but also a sense of opportunity. This is here, this is in front of me, this is something I can do. So why not do it to get this message out more than if I didn't do it? If I wasn't a bodybuilder, I don't think many people would want to listen to my story, not at least at first.
What about like people who fail at this? Do you think it's mostly because they've approached it maybe from a diet perspective rather than the ethical by any chance, or do you have any theories on that?
If you fail on anything at life, at least for like enough to quit, usually your why, finding a reason why hasn't been met yet. For me, I became vegan overnight. Once it clicked for me where dairy came from and how the cows are still killed, that was all it took. Once I made that mental connection, I was there. I found my why. If you're doing this for health reasons, it might be harder because we often won't put ourselves first. Mothers will put their kids first. In my case, like, I put the animals above myself. So for me, it's very easy. But will I do things that are unhealthy for me? Yeah, I used to drink alcohol too. Like, I knew that wasn't healthy for me. It didn't kill anything else. It only hurt me. So it's really, in my mind, imperative to find what's more important than you and put that first. So if that's your kids, if that is your health because you're trying to have kids, or if it's the animals, it'll make your decision a lot easier. For me, also the planet, like knowing that I am contributing less to pollution by eating a plant-based diet and helping to save the world, like that matters a lot to me. So I try and put the world and put the animals above myself, even though my health, sometimes I may not do the healthiest things. I think the biggest reason someone would fail at being vegan is just a lack of understanding on their part, or a lack of commitment to their why for being vegan. I think it's so easy in our society to be removed from what we do. I think if we took every fifth grader, instead of to Washington DC, if we took them to a slaughterhouse, I bet most kids that day would decide to go vegetarian, at least for a while. Then they'd probably go home, all their families would be forcing them one way, and they would be seeing all these advertisements, and then their friends would be like, well, it's just one burger, well, how bad is it? And then they might go back to it. But I think if we did a better job of showing people where their food comes from, I think that would be a great way to change, starting with the children. I think kids should be educated to make their own decisions. I don't hate my parents for not making me be vegan or vegetarian, but I wish that option had been raised, that discussion had been had, because when I was 4 and I saw it happening with the fish, I could make an objection then.
Sounds like you're saying the reason might be that they don't have that core ethical premise to work from. Is that about right? Pretty accurate, I guess?
Yeah, I think even with as great as social media and technology are for connecting us, it still is far off somewhere else. A slaughterhouse is far off somewhere else. If you go into a cow field and take a few minutes to look eye to eye with a cow, you're going to see something looking back at you. And it's not just nothing. It's not a life that's just okay to just kill and get rid of. I think the fact that it happens in our mind thousands of miles away with people we'll never meet and we never have to see this happen, it doesn't feel so real. What's funny is I live in a county where they have just passed this bill to allow a slaughterhouse to be built. So like this is coming home for me. It's going to be within like 20 miles of my house and there's going to be a slaughterhouse there. And like even as a vegan, I still think like, oh, I'm vegan so I'm not doing this, but it's all far off. No, it's literally in my backyard now. So having it there in front of us just shows how real it is. And it's cool to look on a phone or to watch on your computer, but if you can get out there, either at a slaughterhouse if you're not convinced, or if you're already vegan and you want to revisit your reason why, just go to a cow field and look at a cow.
Yeah, or an animal sanctuary.
Yeah, animal sanctuaries are great.
Yeah. Or watch Earthlings. Have you seen Earthlings?
No, not
No.
yet.
You don't need to watch it, do you?
No. we just watched What the Health recently, and that it really like reconfirmed some of my whys. Like I was always a big why for the animals, but What the Health reminded me is that it is your health, and you know we could care less about our health at times, but things that always still matter to me are the health of our planet. That's something that sometimes you might forget if you've been vegan for a long time, is how important it is for the planet, but then also to think about for the counties and the communities where there are slaughterhouses and how it destroys the environment around them. And I can only imagine what it does to you as a person to have to slit the throat of 1,000 to 2,000 animals a day. I can only imagine what that does to you. So there's many reasons to be vegan, even if not just for yourself or the animals.
Now, when you're trying to advocate or you're just talking about things in general, do you ever try to tiptoe around the word vegan and maybe try to use other words due to the fact that some people may interpret it, kind of negatively or have a negative connotation?
Yeah, and so I try not to necessarily tiptoe around the word vegan, but I try and use all the words that might make this resonate with somebody. So like plant-based is another word. They mean similar things, they're not quite the same though. Whereas you could be plant-based and still wear leather shoes. You could be plant-based and still go hunting for fun. It doesn't mean you're vegan. Vegan is more of an ethical standpoint of we shouldn't kill animals unless we absolutely need to. I can sometimes reach people on the plant-based side just because they've heard stereotypes about vegans, and maybe it's a touchy subject for them. For me personally, religion is a little bit of a touchy subject. I've had negative experiences in my life due to religion, so if somebody comes up to me and says they're of a certain faith, like feelers almost go out. Like I'm like, whoa, let me slow down here. So I'm sure there's other people out there that have run into vegans that have been angry, that have been upset about the injustices and have taken it out on this person. So trying to find other ways to at least get that conversation started, whether that's using the word vegan or plant-based.
Do you have any tips like to help others maybe be better influencers, and encouraging others?
To encourage others, I think the best thing that you can do is lead by example. The quote, be the change you want to see in the world. If you're going out and you're doing it in a positive manner, there's a very big difference from going to a restaurant and saying, I'm going to take the plant-based burger, versus going to a restaurant and looking at somebody else and saying, hey, you're doing the wrong thing. If I go order a plant-based burger, somebody might see me do that and be like, oh wow, this guy's vegan or this guy's plant-based. I think another thing that we can do, and it's a little bit my thing, for like last year, I've worn vegan shirts every day. And it is to show other people that I'm vegan, but I've met so many friends now that have walked up to me and been like, whoa, you're vegan? I didn't know that. Or stopped me at a gas station, or stopped me in the store, or seen me in the gym for the first time ever yesterday. And they're like, oh wow, you're really vegan? And then we talk and we exchange Instagrams. Like that can be a great way of outreach to meet people that might be vegan themselves but aren't quite yet comfortable wearing a vegan shirt. So getting it out there is a great form of outreach just by wearing a shirt.
You have any success stories you want to share?
Yeah. Oh wow, success stories. That kind of caught me off guard. I think I probably fall into the category of most people, regardless of how objectively or subjectively successful you are in your life, you don't always see it. I think for me, my biggest success is in my own heart, is taking a step into being fully self-employed, being a full-time online fitness coach, primarily working with vegans. I do work with non-vegans. It's a great way to get that conversation started and introduce some foods into their diet that maybe they hadn't tried. But up until August of 2022, I was still working full time. I had been coaching for about 3 years. I felt like I was being pulled in a lot of directions, not able to take time off work to come to events like this. So once I made that step and kind of took a risk, because it's scary to tell your full-time employer that offers you benefits and everything else, like, hey, I'm just gonna walk away from this. You're not firing me. I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna try and do my own thing. It was really scary, but it's like been like a leap of faith, and I'm so grateful for it. I'm so grateful that I have this healthy body, like that, you know, I have built, but I've also been lucky enough to inherited this. I was born with legs, I was born with eyes, I was born with hands. I realized that I was also born in the United States, a white male. I've had a lot handed to me that other people just aren't gonna get. So I try to stay as grateful for that as I can, and just thankful for the hundreds of people that have let me coach them. Like this is a dream come true. I'm really lucky to be in the spot that I'm in, and I'm grateful for it. So.
What about where you've helped maybe somebody else, or you've seen somebody else succeed?
Oof. I think with my clients overall, like you could give me all the money in the world and tell me to go buy Ferraris and stuff like that, things that would be fun and cool. But the biggest satisfaction that I get in life is when I have a client, like yesterday I had a client text me, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I've really needed this help for years. I just didn't know where to start, and this is what I've been wanting and needing. And like a message like that, like it might as well be my birthday or Christmas. Like there's nothing you could give me or nothing I could do for myself that makes me feel better than that. So I've had clients that get ready for weddings, that have lost like 40 pounds, switched to a fully vegan diet, clients that have improved their health markers, whether that's their body fat levels, their blood work levels, either chasing performance or health or a combination of that, like helping other people do that. Those are my biggest successes.
Is there anything about vegans you wish you could change?
I guess it would depend on where you're at in your journey. In myself, I'll look inward. When I first became vegan, I was still a little bit afraid to say it. I was afraid of being bullied. I was afraid of being thought of as different. I used to be like, well, let them get to know me for 6 months and then I'll tell them, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, wow, you changed my idea of what a vegan is. But then I realized there's so many people that I meet in the store, meet in the gym, that I would miss out on. So being open to saying, hey, I'm vegan, but not necessarily like forcing it upon someone is a great way to get that conversation started again. I think the other thing too is vegans in general, you need to come at this is strong. You could come at this from an angle of maybe they're on their own journey. I have a friend, I love him, he's been vegan for 10 years. He's vegan from 40 years old to 50 years old, but he commonly feels like he's gonna have to remove people from his life, or feels as if other people just don't see the light yet. Like it's so frustrating to him. And I almost wanna tell him just like, chill out and keep doing your thing. You're doing great things, you're leading by example. These other people are on their journey. It took you until 40 to get there. Maybe we can get some other people at 30 or 20, but like just because they're 22 and they're not there yet doesn't mean that they're a horrible person. They just haven't seen it yet and they haven't clicked with it yet. But I like to believe in people and believe that they can. So as much as I want to go out in the streets and be like, you guys are killing all these animals, what's wrong with you? It won't actually change, in my opinion, won't change a whole lot. If we can be happy and positive and make people want to come be with us, it's gonna be a lot better than just shaming everybody.
The thing that you would like to see vegans change at is not being afraid to use the word. In respect to your friend who's been doing it for 10 years since he's 40, I'm not quite clear on that. Like, what is it you wish he would change?
Sometimes, so my friend, he will be very upset that somebody else is not vegan. Because he now he now understands what it means if you're not vegan. He understands what happens to the animals, and it greatly upsets him. Yeah. He's got a really big heart, so I get it. It upsets me too. But he'll do it to the point where he will want to remove himself from these people. He'll want to take steps back or remove people from his life.
So don't isolate.
Yeah. If you isolate or get angry or push away because you're so strong in this belief, and there's nothing wrong about being strong in this belief, but if you are and you do push people away, they're not going to come to this. And if your last interaction with a vegan is a bad one, you're probably going to keep that going for a long time. Like I go in the gym and some days I get like in my zone and I'm not like necessarily the nicest person. I try and just not talk to people. But if somebody comes up and wants to talk to me and they haven't talked to me before, I have to realize like I'm bannering that I'm a vegan. So if I'm an asshole, they're gonna be like, yep, vegan asshole, I knew it. And so I'm trying to break that stereotype, and I think we all can work towards that.
So you don't tiptoe around that word at all?
No, I'll play with people actually. When I meet them, if they say, whoa, are you really vegan or is that a joke? I'll like point out my arm and be like, yep, I'm vegan. It's actually led to a relationship, so it's kind of funny how that can get the conversation started. You know, I try to look as different and approachable as possible. I'm usually wearing like bright colored clothing, rainbow shoes, just because it will allow people to come up to me and talk. And yeah, I'll be honest with them. If they ask me, why are you vegan? I'll tell them it's for the animals. I think it's wrong to kill things. I'm not really afraid to say that anymore. It took me a while to get there. If you're not there yet, give it time.
And your current relationship, is she vegan?
She's well on her way. Not vegan yet. And it's funny because, you know, everybody is on their own journey. When I met her, she did not want to eat tofu. She didn't want to try a whole lot of new foods. And now she helps me every single week meal prep tofu and all these things. And so if you're vegan and watching this, it'd be easy to jump on her and be like, well, you're not perfect yet. What's wrong with you? You know, people take time. And if nothing else, she's probably changed 80, 90% of her diet. That's a huge change. If I could get 100% of the world to go 80% vegan, that's so much better than, you know, even if I could go get a couple million people to go vegan tomorrow. Like, it's all about doing as much as we can, as much as we're comfortable with. And, you know, it's a ripple effect. Even if she's not vegan, she's gotten many of her friends and other people to try vegan foods and open their mindset. It's going to take time.
And it takes your own time.
Yeah. She said it takes your own time. Like, it's something that has to come around, and it wasn't immediate. It's been 6-7 months now that we've been talking and growing, and she's been slowly changing this whole time. If you're doing it solely on your own, if it wasn't like an outside, like for me, you know, my primer was when I was 10, my friend who's actually born on the exact same day as me, she's telling me, hey, you know, and what's funny is she told me that I should stop eating a hamburger. I became vegetarian a few months later. She didn't. She was vegetarian, then she wasn't, then she went vegan, then she wasn't. She's now vegan, but her own journey, like she started before me, but technically like finished after me because it took her longer to make the switch. So everybody's on their own journey. I think, yeah, being 10 and 13 for vegetarian and for vegan, it was probably easier in some ways because I was still learning and developing, and when you're at those ages, you're still figuring yourself out. Now that I'm 30, if you came into my life and told me like, I don't know, I need to take out all green foods or something, like if I needed to do that to be healthy and live and not hurt things, I might be like, well, I'm a bodybuilder, I need these things, I've done this for 10 years and it's worked for 10 years, why would I change it now? So there is some credit to that. Like if you're younger, it can be easier to be able to change. Almost like learning a new language. It's easier when you're a child than when you're an adult.
We're hitting on some pretty popular topics right now. The whole YouTube phenomenon of vegans failing. Even if it's just 1 out of 79 million vegans, it gets blown out of proportion, just like most things in the media. And you know, people that are trying to succeed at things, they need to have the capacity for applied failure, because failure is a part of success, right? I mean, you've probably failed at things and kept going, right?
I try to fail at things. The more things that I fail at, the more I learn. I try to be, you know, like I run some different businesses, and usually it's like, okay, here's a really good idea, let's go for it, and then it just blows up in our face, and it's like, okay, well, now we learn, you know, just like Thomas Edison with the light bulb, like this isn't the right way, let's try another one. Whether that's on your diet or finding your reasons or whatever it is, a failure is only a failure if you let it be. Like it can be just a path towards learning another success.
You have a quote you want to share?
One that I say every single day to friends and family is have the best day ever. It took me a while to get there. I would let little things get me down, and sometimes I need a reminder. That's why I put it on my arm. Whether that's like your car not starting or something that's really not that big of a deal. It's not like you just lost a family member. Like, get over it. Have a good day. Like, find ways to just keep moving forward. But I think one that'll apply a little bit more to this for vegans, for anyone listening to this, is one that's really hit home to me. It's, you do not inherit the world from your parents, you borrow it from your children. And I don't necessarily know if I'm having children or not, we'll get to there later. But like a lot of people think like, oh, this is mine because my parents gave it to me. But if you can shift your mindset into, with what I do now, it's gonna affect my children and future generations, it can really like make you cognizant of what you're doing. So whether or not you're vegan for the animals, think about it for the planet. Like, what kind of world do you want your kids to grow up in? And if you're not going to have kids, what about your brothers or sisters or other people that are going to be living here after you? Everything that we take right now isn't necessarily ours to take. We're taking it from them. So really think about your actions, and it doesn't have to be huge, but like recycling, using less things, the little steps that can make big differences. And even if you're not fully vegan, why don't you try it for one meal a day? Like, that's a difference. That makes the world a better place for whoever's coming next.
So what does a typical day of eating look like for you? Okay. An ideal day?
I'll go through my bodybuilder day and then I'll list some fun foods. Yeah. So as a bodybuilder, I eat 6 meals a day. So the first meal has usually, lately, it's been like a smoothie bowl, and I'll have some rice cakes on the side, and I'll break those up or dip them in there. There'll be fruits, protein powder, the rice cakes, maybe some peanut butter, some nuts, something like that. That'll be like meal 1. Meal 2 will typically be like a scrambled tofu with some veggies, so maybe peas, green beans, spinach, and then on the side I'll usually have some mango. Meal 3 will usually be before the gym, and I'll have seitan, rice, cashews, some beans in that meal. Then I'll work out. Then after working out, I'll have more protein powder mixed in cream of rice. That's like a very bodybuilder food. So if you're not familiar with like high-level bodybuilding, you might not have heard of this, but it's cream of rice. It's just super digestible. So that about an hour after that meal, I can go eat my next meal, which has lately been oats, TVP, nutritional yeast, spinach, and it's kind of like mixed up in this like savory bowl. Like normally oats are like sweet, but I don't know. I like this savory bowl idea. And then my last meal will be seitan with some guacamole and something for carbs. Right? Lately it's been like rice cakes with peanut butter, but we'll see. So that's like my current like John as a bodybuilder diet. But what do I like to eat when I go out? Pizza's probably, like vegan pizza's probably my favorite one. But I like breakfast food. So we went to this place in Houston that had this like breakfast vegan pizza.
What was the name of it?
Pythagoras.
Pythagoras, yes! I'm releasing his interview, Ruzi,
Yeah.
next week. I'm going back there at the end of this month, yeah. We're having a meeting there, a private meeting there.
Small world.
I love Pythagoras.
Yeah, it's nowhere near me, but we did a road trip to Texas, and we're like, what's close to the gym? Pythagoras, vegan pizza, and they have this like breakfast one with like cheese, egg, and bacon on it. Like it was so good.
That's funny.
I also really like pancakes, another breakfast food. I mean, I'll say this much. I'm not super picky anymore because I competed the first time when I was 21 and I had my calories so low for so long. I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't have a coach. Pro tip, if you're gonna bodybuild, get a coach. Once I competed and was able to eat after, I just opened my mind to everything. Like I was a vegan that didn't eat a ton of vegetables before. I just, I didn't need them to grow muscle, but like I didn't really care about health. But now, like, give me a raw carrot, give me some celery, like whatever, I'll eat it. I'll eat anything. I love all foods.
Do you think we'll ever see a vegan world?
I think we will. But I think it might not be in the way that most people think. I think there's a few different routes for ensuring humanity's survival. I mean, there's just a chance that we never go vegan and we end up using all the resources and polluting the earth to the point where humans die off and other forms of life will take over. But that's like worst case scenario. Either due to demand, like global food supply, we'll be forced to go down a more vegan route. Maybe some countries or still like developing nations will not be vegan. But I also think there's the other route where lab-grown meat and other forms of food that are, I guess, technically not vegan in the sense that they're from an animal, but it's without harming animals.
Like a bacteria or fungus or something.
Yeah, exactly. So like if lab-grown meat becomes viable, and then we find a way to make it cheaper than regular meat, boom, game over. Like there'll be no need for factory farming. Once we can get the economies of scale and have a way to make this done with lab-grown meat, I think we'll be well on our way to vegan almost overnight. It's going to be a crazy next 50 years. Either we're going to figure it out or we're going to see a lot of the issues of not figuring it out.
Did we say how people can find out more about you online?
Yeah. If you'd like to learn more about me, probably the easiest way is through Instagram. I'm at the Bodybuilding Vegan. If you shoot me a message, I'm super open to replying to you. If you're looking for coaching, happy to do that as well. Just reach out. And if you don't have Instagram, you can go to thebodybuildingvegan.com. I have my website. You can shoot me a message on there. But yeah, I'm happy to talk to anybody, whether you're vegan, plant curious, or completely not, and you want to tell me the reasons why I shouldn't be. Well, we can have a conversation.
You know, it's funny you should bring that up. Here lately, is there's been a lot of talk about debating certain carnivore, influencers. I'm like, what's there to debate? That's like debating my existence. Like, what are we going to debate? How do you feel about debating carnivore versus vegan?
I don't feel like there's a whole much of a viable debate. Granted, some influencers and people are going to claim that they eat carnivore. I just don't see how it's the biggest issue. If we all went carnivore, we'd run out of food. There's no way for the world to survive on carnivore. So that inherently makes it flawed, in my opinion. But if you want to look at the science, look at our digestive tract. Our digestive tract is way longer based on our size than other animals that are true carnivores. Things like cats. Like cats have a much shorter digestive system, so they can get the meat through it without getting all the parasites and get it out real quick. We're not built like that. So whether you want to look at it from a biological standpoint or just a practicality standpoint, I don't see the huge or really any argument for being carnivore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. Is there anything that we didn't hit on that you would like to get out there, or last minute encouraging words?
Believe in yourself. Take risks on yourself. If you don't take those risks on yourself, nobody's going to do it for you. You get to choose what you want to do with your life. We live in this like society that's nice and built up, but we're only like maybe a few thousand years in either direction of like throwing rocks at each other's heads. So all this stuff that you feel, that you think, you know is real, whether that's laws or how you're supposed to be or what you're supposed to do or what your parents want, all that's just made up. You get to choose what you want to do with your life, starting literally the moment you were born. So right now, if there's something that doesn't fit with your life, if something's not good, whether it's a job, it's a relationship, it's a food style, it's how heavy you are, like whatever that is, if it doesn't work for you, break up with it, move on, and start your new life. Yeah. I want to learn more about you too.
Well, I'm on this side of the camera for a reason.
I had somebody tell me that like, nothing's a coincidence. And I don't necessarily believe everything happens for a reason. I don't think billions of animals are being killed every year for a good reason. But the fact that like you were just at Pythagoras and we just went there. Like I'm noticing all these little things and I'm like, I don't know, maybe the universe is like sprinkling little like, this is your why, you're on the right track. Like you wouldn't have noticed this connection had you not done that then and you weren't doing this now. So maybe you're moving in the right direction.
Where do you live again?
I live in Gainesville, Florida.
Oh, okay, cool.
Planning to move very soon to Tampa. There's a lot more vegan stuff, but also a lot more bodybuilding stuff.
Nice. Yeah. Well, we'll look forward to learning more about you online and following you, man.
Yeah. Thank you, brother.